Welcome back to the Wake Man channel. Alright, so today's video is going to be episode 21 of the Wakeboat ownership series, and in today's video I'm going to break down the main differences that I've noted between my 2018 Malibu 24MXZ and my 2019 Nautique G23. I'm going to go through all the items that I've noted after my first 3 trips to the lake because those are the items that are very important to me, and really describe to you how I feel about the differences and give you my opinions on them. Before I cover the differences, I'm going to go ahead and share some clips with you from our 3rd trip out to the lake with the 2019 G23. So make sure to stay tuned after those clips to see the breakdown of the differences. I just want to let you know, if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can head on over to wakemann.com and find all kinds of merch like this hat and this shirt that I have on. Wow, look at that. 62, 60s. When it gets into the 60s, it's no gloves and no boots for surfing and wakeboarding. I mean, you still wear boots wakeboarding, but that's when it starts getting comfortable in a wetsuit. That's awesome. And it looks pretty nice and buttery and glassy out here. So I hope it stays this way. It's supposed to be about mid to high 70s today. Pumped. All right, so this is the 3rd time to the lake. I'm waiting for Carly to get on the dock here to pick her up. I'm pretty excited because it looks pretty nice and calm and smooth out here. The water temp's finally in the 60s. It's been a month since I've been on the water just because of a couple different things. So I'm excited. I'm out with all my steel shot ballast today. So now I'm finally going to get to see the full potential of this boat. So yeah, just pretty excited to go hit it. I'm going to go pick up Carly right now from the dock, and I'll talk a bit more later. Alright, so I loaded up the bags to where we're actually a little nose heavy right now. I'm going to try that out with the wake because that's what I'm going to do first, is wakeboard, and also see if that helps with water coming over the back when we stop. But it'll be super easy to move a couple bags somewhere else in the cabin if it doesn't work out. I'm also deciding whether or not I want 1,100 pounds of steel shot in the boat. So I just want to remind you, there's 1 week left on the steel shot ballast giveaway from Wake Life Co. So if you're interested in winning a couple of 50-pound bags of steel shot from Wake Life Co., I'll put a link to the video that explains how you can enter that contest right above me. So get over to that video and get entered to win 2 50-pound bags of steel shot. We're actually going to pick 2 winners on that. 2 lucky winners are going to get 100 pounds of steel shot to put in their boat. That wasn't even that bad. Alright, so Tim's thoughts before a set. So this is our 3rd time out to the lake this year. Maxed out on weight. In fact, I think I can already tell that we're going to be taking some weight out of here. I'm super hot right now. I think it's probably 70 degrees, but the sun's out, it's calm. I'm in this hot wetsuit. The water is in the 60s. Usually when it's in the 60s, I don't need gloves. I can actually start getting into this. So I'm really excited to start kind of getting back into wakeboarding, getting used to this wake. We only had a little bit of time on it the last time we were out. So I'm excited for that. I'm also excited to check out the wave and get a final analysis on the wave, which you're gonna see in this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit this. Water ain't gonna feel that way, I'm sure. Woo! Okay, so our third trip to the lake was a really good time. So I've got a list right down here that I'm going to be looking at while I cover the items with you. I'm going to be going one by one through the items that I've kind of noted that are really important to me on a wake boat and let you know the main differences there. Okay, so the first one is the power seat on Malibu versus Nautique without a power seat. And really what the difference is there. So before I got my Nautique, I had heard that Nautique's bow rise is some of the best in the industry. But on Malibu, for me and my wife, really my wife mainly, we thought the power seat was very important, especially after putting it as an option on the Malibu. Because my wife literally had to use the bolster and have the power seat all the way up to be able to comfortably see over the bow while pulling me wakeboarding or surfing. With Nautique, I can tell you the bow rise is really good, and I haven't had to use the bolster, and there is no power seat option. But my wife has had to use the bolster, but it seems as though she's been able to comfortably look over the bow. She did mention that it would be nice if she could go like another, I don't know, half inch to an inch higher. So to me, it's almost a tie. I'm not sure whether it'd be better to have the low rise bow or the power seat. The fact that Nautique has the low bow rise out of the box and you don't have to option it with the power seat, I think is a good thing. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that one at a tie for me and leave it up to you to decide which one you think is better.
The next item is the window. So on both Malibu and Nautique, I like the window design. I think they both look pretty cool. But I will say that Nautique's window sits higher for me. So if I'm sitting comfortably, and I'm 6'2", so if I'm sitting comfortably without the bolster up, the windshield is like right at the top of my head, so it really is blocking the wind. Whereas on Malibu, typically my eyes are over the top of the windshield. So in my opinion, Nautique slightly wins on the windshield because it actually is blocking the wind for even a tall driver. The next item is the throttle. So on my 2018 24MXZ, it was just a aluminum billet CNC throttle. I thought it was really nice. I liked the feel of it. And I think both Nautique and Malibu are throttled by wire. So the transition is very smooth. So as far as throttling up, throttling down, it's very smooth. I would say that I like the fact that Nautique has a nice big armrest, but I do prefer the look and the feel of Malibu's throttle. So in my opinion, I like Malibu's throttle a little bit better the way it is right now. So next is cruise control. Malibu's cruise control, you set your speed on the screen and then you give it throttle until it gets to this little space that can kind of move around, and you just want to keep your throttle in between that space. And with Nautique, you set your speed and you just kind of throw the throttle down and it's got it. As long as you have it down far enough, once it gets to that level, it just takes over and controls it. With Malibu, if you went beyond that little space, it would sit there and throttle up and throttle down, which was really annoying. So you have to like try to get it in that spot. And if you were below it, it would do a similar thing. It was like it wouldn't be able to keep speed. So it's a lot nicer. I have to give the point to Nautique on that one because I like how it just takes over and you don't have to try to keep it in a certain spot. And my wife absolutely loves it because she's the one that's driving most of the time. Okay, so fuel. I have to say that I thought that the Nautique would do better in fuel efficiency just because the power wedge does cause a lot of drag. But I would say so far it seems like they're very similar in fuel efficiency as far as how I use them and how I'm weighting the boats. I haven't calculated it down to the penny, but I really have not noticed much of a difference in how much fuel I'm consuming. The biggest difference I've noticed is that the Malibu 24MXZ has like a 77-gallon tank, and I think the G23 has either a 55 or a 60-gallon tank. I can't remember, but basically the biggest difference I've noticed is that the tank doesn't go as long. So for somebody who's going out for a weekend, if you're surfing all day long, you might use a full tank. Whereas on my Malibu, if you're surfing all day long, you're probably only going to use about 2/3 to 3/4 of a tank and still have some left. So that's probably the biggest difference I've noticed. No big deal to me on the Nautique not being able to go as long because when I'm out for a weekend, I actually carry extra fuel with me in the back of my truck in a fuel transfer tank. So to me that's a tie. I don't really have a strong opinion on one versus the other. But if you're somebody who wants to be able to carry more fuel in your boat, that may matter. And I would say the Malibu might win in your opinion, but for me it's a tie. All right, next up is the cover. I have been trailering my Malibu boats. The last 3 Malibus I've owned, so a 2014 23 LSV, a 2017 23 LSV, and a 2018 24 MXZ. I have been trailering those with the cover on the boat for countless hours, probably over 1,000 hours worth of boat time. I usually go 2 hours to the lake and 2 hours back. I do that every weekend from Memorial Day through Labor Day and then some. So you take all those trips into consideration, and I have the cover on the boat while I'm trailing. The most damage I've ever noticed the cover doing to the boat with my Malibus is some light scuffing, and it's something that I could really quickly polish out. So nothing bad at all. My first trip to the lake with my Nautique with the cover on, it did some pretty decent scuffing, and enough to where I will not be trailering it with that cover on again. I might do it with my 2022 to try it out, but after that trip I came back and I actually polished all the areas where it did some scuff damage and fixed it up, and it looks great now. But if I was to run that cover back and forth to the lake all summer long, I bet it would be down to the fiberglass in some spots. So I am very disappointed with Nautique's cover. And I do not think it is a trailerable cover, even though it is listed as one. So I am not happy with that. I know that Malibu's cover has like an undercoating in some spots that's like a nice like soft cotton feel, something like that. And they probably do that specifically so that it's not damaging the gel coat. Also on Malibu, it had less touch points to the gel coat. So this is part of the cover with the gel coat design. So needless to say, Malibu wins very strongly on the cover. I'm very disappointed with Nautique's cover, at least for the 2019 G23 with the cover that goes over the folded tower. And that's what I had for my 24MXZ, is a cover that went over the folded tower. For the previous 3 Malibus, I had the cover that goes around the tower that's up. So that's my opinion there. The racks. So really what I'm comparing with the racks is the PTM Edge clamp racks to the Triton strapless racks that Nautique uses. And I have to say, I think the Triton racks work really well. But I do prefer the PTM Edge racks just because it keeps the boards up and out of the view of the driver a little bit more. So if the driver's trying to look back at the rider, with the Triton racks, the rider goes out of the driver's vision over on the starboard side for a good bit of time. Whereas with the PTM Edge racks, it might block some view, but you can still see underneath pretty decent. The other thing about it is I just prefer the functionality of how the clamps work, as opposed to pulling that kind of clamp device up on the Triton racks. So I just kind of prefer how that works on the PTM Edge racks. Both are good products. I just prefer the PTM Edge racks. Maneuverability. So on my 2018 24MXZ, and I think all the Malibus I've owned, they all had 2 big gorilla fins on the bottom of the boat to track the direction that you're driving in. And my 2019 Nautique G23 only has 1 gorilla fin, and it's actually a little smaller. There's good things about having big tracking fins and a bigger boat to stay tracking in one direction. There's downsides to that as well, where the shorter boat and the smaller gorilla fin help with maneuverability. So I would say it's basically a tie there. I can tell you that the thing that was nice about the 24MXZ is when I'm cutting out hard to the side to cut out and then come back in to hit the wake, on my 24MXZ, you didn't feel it as much, and it didn't try to change the direction of the boat. But the G23, you do feel it a bit more. But I would say it's pretty comparable to how my 23 LSVs felt. The G23, so they're pretty close, even though there was 2 big tracking fins on the 23 LSVs. I do like the fact that you can turn the G23 a little faster. So the 24MXZ, just the longer the boat, the harder it is to turn it, or the slower it turns. So just being around a dock and being at low speeds, it's nice to have a little bit more maneuverability. So again, I think that's more of like a tie there, but I am enjoying a little bit more turn capability of the G23 right now. Okay, water over the back, or water over the transom. And this is something I probably wouldn't have even brought up had it not been for our first experience with this. Now surfing, I wouldn't even really say there's a difference between the 24MXZ and the G23, but wakeboarding, there's a huge difference. The first time I went out with 550 pounds of weight on the G23, we were trying out the wake. I was checking it out before I got out there to make sure it was nice and clean on both sides. And we stopped the boat, and a huge wave came over the back of the boat, went right inside the boat, and it was just surprising. Every once in a while, when I had a few people on the boat that added some extra weight, you get a bit of a splash up over top of the transom walk-through on my 24MXZ, but never close to the amount of water that came in that first time that I was messing with the wakeboard wake. And that's something that on that day and the next time that we went out, my wife had to drive the boat in a particular way to where that didn't happen, and it's a pain in the butt. So I would say that's a bit of a disappointment for Nautique. So I've got to give the point to Malibu on that one. I don't know why you would design a boat in such a way that it takes water over the back so bad. Surf bimini, or just a bimini in general. I really liked my 2018 24 MXZ flip bimini. It was super easy, didn't have any poles to hook in. It just kind of snapped into place and it folded down nicely with the tower. I thought it was very cool. But move on over to the 2019 Nautique G23. And the surf bimini is very cool in that it has more coverage for sure. So if you want to be in the shade as the driver or some people in the boat, the G23's bimini does a way better job of coverage. And then also, as far as using the surf boots on top, you have a lot better access to those on Nautique than you do on Malibu. On Malibu, it was a big pain in the butt to like try to get up there and put the surfboards in and strap them in. You had to like stand on the edge and you feel like you're gonna fall off the boat. You can actually do it pretty comfortably on Nautique by standing on the sun deck pads on the transom. So I like that about Nautique. The one thing I miss about Malibu is the rope storage pockets, because those were perfect for drying out your ropes without them sitting in the sun and getting sun rot. So when you're done wakeboarding for the day and you're gonna switch over to surfing, I'd always put my rope up in one of those to dry out, and it worked perfectly. I would have to say Nautique has a slightly better bimini, just because it has better coverage and it's a lot easier to use the surf pockets. All right, next is engine noise. So the Raptor engines are definitely known for being a little loud. So on my Malibu, the Raptor engine was definitely pretty loud. I would say as a surfer, that's when you notice it the most. Now you can do the surf pipe on both boats, and I did start with the surf pipe on my 24 MXZ, but I took it off because it was affecting my wakeboard wake, and I didn't like that. And I think Malibu's improved on that. And it was slightly quieter when the surf pipe was on there. But Nautique's engine setup and their surf pipe setup, as far as noise level, really kind of blows Malibu out of the water. Because for the first time, I am hearing the sounds of the water all around me much more than I'm hearing the engine when I'm surfing. And the same goes for wakeboarding. I don't hear it as much. I would say as the driver or people sitting in the boat, I don't notice that much of a difference between the PCM 450 and the Raptor 450. But to me, the important part is the engine noise not blasting you while you're riding behind the boat. And I think Nautique's setup does a really good job of at keeping the engine noise at a reasonable level while you're riding behind it. Okay, so now on to weighting your boat. So on my 2018 24 MXZ, I used to just straight up evenly weight the boat. And I would only ever counterweight for the extra weight that's on the one side of the boat. So for example, my wife weighs about 115 pounds. So I'd always, make sure there's a little extra weight on the port side to offset that. But with Nautique, just to get your weight clean on both sides, and it sounds like most people do this for their wave as well, you literally have to lean it to the port side, not evenly weight it. So the boat, for wakeboarding behind my 2018 Malibu 24 MXZ, the boat would be sitting even in the water. When I got out to wakeboard, the boat is sitting even in the water. Not leaning one way to the other. But for Nautique, in order to get it to clean up on the port side, and whether it be for a wave or a wakeboard wave, you have to lean it to the port side at least a little bit. So in other words, when I get in the water, to get the wakes both clean, the boat's slightly leaning to the port side. A lot of people say it's from the prop wash or whatever, but I'm not a fan of that. It'd be much easier to dial in for somebody who just bought a boat if you just evenly weight the boat. And that was one of the things I loved about when Surfgate first came out, is we didn't have to lean the boat at all anymore. You just evenly weight it, which makes it easy to transition from wakeboarding to surfing. But I will say that, Nautique, it seems like it's the same from wakeboarding to surfing. You just have to lean it seemingly by 150 to 200 pounds on the port side to make it clean up on the port side. So I have to say that Malibu wins on that one because you just evenly weight a Malibu. Next is tower. So I have to talk about the tower a little bit. On my 2018 24 MXZ, I had the G4 tower. And now Malibu has the G10 tower, and that came out either in 2019 or 2020, I can't remember. And the G23 has what they call the actuated tower, which is a power tower as well. I have to say that in my experience, because I did go to a few demos and try the G10 tower, I have to say that I would probably prefer the functionality of the G10 tower over the Nautique actuated tower, just because you just put your hand up and turn a dial and it just goes down. Whereas on Nautique, you have to push one button and another button, and it just kind of slowly goes. It's quite a bit slower than Malibu's. So the functionality, I think I like the G10 tower better, but I would say that I like the look of the Nautique G23 actuated tower better. And actually, if you really want to get technical, I love the Paragon tower. I think that is a super cool design, but it's very pricey and I don't see myself ever buying a Paragon. So those are my thoughts on the differences for the tower. Okay, so now to talk about ballast. For my 2018 Malibu 24 MXC, it had 1,800 pounds of stock ballast, and in the rear lockers, the ballast tanks would curve up the side, so that way you could put bags right next to them and then put them on the plug and play, and the top of the hard tank would monitor how much water is in the bags. And that came out in 2018, I think, and it was one of the things I thought was really cool, because I didn't have to mess with the bags anymore. I could just fill them up, drain them just from the dash, and didn't have to even look at them anymore. Keep in mind, so that's 1,800 pounds of stock ballast in the hard tanks, and then they claim that the power wedge adds up to 1,500 pounds of ballast, and they include that in their ballast total. So we're talking up to 2,300 pounds of stock ballast. But Malibu does something tricky when you look at their spec sheet, and they actually include bags on their plug and play in their max total, which to me is a little bit sneaky, because you won't be able to build a Malibu from the factory and they'll send it out with bags in it, because that's a liability issue to them. You have to buy aftermarket bags and put them in on your plug and play. So all they're doing is providing the plug and play system. They're not providing you bags, because bags and steel shot ballast bags are all people replacement weight. So what they're basically avoiding for the liability issue is you putting the capacity of people on your boat and bags, and then you're over the weight limit. So they won't ship a boat out of the factory with ballast bags in it. So what that means is that to compare apples to apples, you can't really take the bags into consideration when we're talking about stock weight. But Malibu does that, and I mean, it's just a marketing thing, no big deal. And I'm not hating on them for that. I would just automatically throw bags in mine because I wanted to max it out. But the reason why I say that is because when I compare it to Nautique, I want to level set and make sure you're aware of that. And so the bags that I would put on top of that, which I don't think of as their stock weight. Their stock weight for a 24 MXE for 2018 would be 2,300 pounds to me. So I threw 650 pound bags on top of that. So that I added another 1,300 pounds with bags in the rear port and starboard lockers. So now if we look at Nautique, Nautique has 2,850 pounds of hard tanks below deck, which is pretty cool. That's an amazing amount of weight, and that's one of the reasons why the G23 has been so popular since it came out, is because they have so much below deck weight. It's also the whole design as well. That was one of the popular things about Nautique. So actually Malibu's is 3,300 pounds if you include the wedge, and that's compared to Nautique's 2,850 pounds of water ballast tanks, which if you actually compare that to the water that's in Malibu's stock tanks, it's 1,050 pounds more. But Nautique doesn't include their NCRS plate on the back. They don't include that in their ballast configuration like Malibu includes the wedge. And the wedge does a great job of shaping waves and wakes, so I do like that about Malibu. But anyways, so what I planned on doing to get my Nautique G23 close to the level of where it should be to compare to Malibu is I added 1,100 pounds of steel shot to my G23 to compare it to that extra 1,300 pounds of water weight that those plug and play bags added to my Malibu. So now you might think differently on that, but that's how I felt about it. Now obviously if you were to take the 24 MXE out and you've got your 1,800 pounds of below deck ballast filled, you're using your wedge that adds up to 1,500 pounds of ballast, and you're using your plug and play ballast bags, 650 pounds a piece. But then you take your Nautique G23 out without any extra weight, and it's just got the 2,850 pounds of water weight below deck, then to me that's not really comparable. So I had to put 1,100 pounds of steel shot in my G23 to try to see how it would compare at that level. So in the end, to me on ballast, it's a tie because it really depends on your situation. If you keep your boat at a dock all the time, you're not trailering it much, then steel shot would probably be better for you. And in that scenario, nautique would be better, because then you can load it up with steel shot and you're not emptying and draining bags, which is nice. But if you're trailering all the time, it's nice to be able to dump as much weight as you can before you trailer back and forth. So it really depends on your situation there. So I would say, as far as ballast goes, that it's a tie between Nautique and Malibu. The next item is wake performance. The winner on this one is clearly Nautique. The G23 throws an amazing wake. And I'm talking, I could have my 24 MXC fully loaded with 1,800 pounds below deck ballast, using the wedge at my preferred level, and also an extra 1,300 pounds of ballast bags in the back. And it still is not making as good of a wakeboard wake as Nautique does with just the stock 2,850 pounds. And so to me, that makes Nautique the clear winner there. The wakeboard wake on this thing is everything that I've heard it is. It is amazing out of the box. I love the wakeboard wake on this G23, and that's probably my favorite thing about it. Now to the wave. I'm sure that there's probably a lot of people that clicked on this video and you're probably trying to skip to this very part of it, and all you're worried about is whether or not I'm going to confirm what you think is true about the wave when I'm comparing Malibu to Nautique. And I have to say, based on everything I've heard and all the videos I've seen, Nautique surprised me. But here are my thoughts. I did several shots that I'm going to run through with you to show you the different levels of the NCRS setting and at the different weight levels. So I went stock with no extra weight, but just the 2,800 pounds below deck. And then I went with 550 extra pounds of steel shot weight, and then I went with 1,100 pounds of steel shot weight. And I'm going to show you the difference between all three of those. But in the end, on my 24MXZ, the wave was just slightly longer and seemed to have a little bit more push at the very back end than Nautique does. But Nautique has a bit steeper wave on the steepest setting. I will say that Nautique seems to have a better wave for a regular foot rider, which kind of sucks for me because I ride goofy, and Malibu's is better for a goofy rider, at least on the 2018 24MXZ. But in the end, they were very close. I would say if all you do is surf and you're just looking for the cheaper option to have a really good surf wave, Malibu's wave barely ekes it out. But I have had a lot of fun on this Nautique wave so far, and they're both very configurable. And I've heard a lot of people say that Nautique's wave is too steep for beginners, but I was able to put it on the NCRS setting of a 1, and it was decent for a new rider. So I wouldn't necessarily go so far as saying that it is too steep for a new rider. I would say that Malibu's wave is slightly taller. So just if you want more height of going up and down your wave, Malibu's a little better there. But as far as being a premium wave, having a lot of fun on it, being able to do tricks on it, honestly, I think it comes down to preference. Both Malibu's and Nautique's waves are very nice waves, and I think they're both premium waves. So I think in the end, because I'm a wakeboarder and I love the fact that it has an awesome wake, to me, on surf wave, it's a little bit of a tie because the G23 puts out a wave that I'm very happy with. And I also get a premium wake. So to follow up and end my differences between Malibu and Nautique, I have to point out the difference in surf systems. So Malibu has the surf gate and Nautique has the Nautique surf system. And I believe Nautique actually pays Malibu for every Nautique they sell with a surf system on it because of a patent infringement or something like that. At least I've read about that. Could be wrong. But in any case, I love how the NSS looks on the Nautique, how it's nice and flush against the boat. It doesn't look like it's sticking out in these extra pieces. So I prefer the NSS look. The functionality is pretty close to the same, except for the remote. And this is where I'm going to slightly give it to Malibu for a win on the differences. The remote that you get out of the box for the Surfgate, it comes with the ability to change the speed, change the surf side, and change the wedge setting, so changing the shape of the wave. It also gives you the ability to change the volume on the music. The one that you get with Nautique literally just lets you change the surf side, and it doesn't do a great job at it. It actually wasn't working at all for me the last time I went out. I actually added it to this boat to have that functionality. I know you can upgrade to a Garmin watch or it was a pebble watch in the past. And that might be something I do on my 2022 boat, but I would say that it's disappointing that it doesn't have something like that out of the box. So I have to give a slight point to Malibu for having a nice surf system out of the box with a nice remote. So that is the end of all of my comparisons and my differences that I've noted since I've been out 3 times on my Nautique. I hope that information is helpful. All right, so just finishing up here. It was a great day on the water. My knees were feeling good. Still getting used to the wake, so I didn't go through all my tricks. It usually takes a few more times out before I start getting through all my tricks, but I got a lot of them back, so pretty happy there. Surfing was a lot of fun. I was happy with the wave. I obviously talked about the breakdown on the differences between my Malibu and my G23. So anyways, it's fun. The season's now upon us. Now the water is getting nice and comfortable. But that's it for this video. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any thoughts on this video or ideas for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. And if you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you can be notified of my future videos. I'll see you next week.